We had another pretty strange move from Virgin Galactic on Monday. The stock is down about 18% as I'm recording in afternoon trading. And this time it was actually Richard Branson who helped found the company and fund the company until it became public, who said he wasn't going to invest anymore into Virgin Galactic and potentially fund its future. And that's what caused the stock to drop. Now, this is a little bit of a crazy reaction because Branson has actually been pulling money out of Virgin Galactic. He has sold over $1 billion worth of stock since the company came public. So I don't really know why investors would think that he's going to put more money back into Virgin Galactic, given what we heard from the company over the last couple of weeks. So I want to go through some of what we heard from Branson and then what we heard from Virgin Galactic, because I think the two stories are very different, and that's the way that we should think about this as investors. My name is Travis Hoium. Thanks for watching Asymmetric Investing. Please subscribe here on YouTube for all my content. And thanks to this video sponsor, The Motley Fool. Check out fool.com/ASYM for their top 10 stocks to buy right now. And I want to start with the stock chart. Like I said, it's close to the end of trading on Monday as I'm recording, and the stock has just dropped like a rock today. This is a look at how shares are trading. You can see the stock's down about 18%. Back down under $2 per share. That's despite a pretty nice recovery for most of the past month. So we were kind of on an upward trend for Virgin Galactic, and this really took a lot of the winds out of the sails. So what exactly happened? Well, the Financial Times first reported that Richard Branson said that he was not going to be investing further in the company. A couple of different interesting notes. He says that his empire no longer has the deepest pockets in the wake of COVID-19. Branson's business includes a bunch of different things, but one is a lot of hospitality properties. So those probably didn't do particularly well during the pandemic. He said that when he was selling shares of Virgin Galactic, he was going to use that in part to bolster other parts of his empire. If you take this at face value, it sounds like the business is not maybe as cash rich as it once was, but he does still have a 7.7% holding in the company. A couple of comments that I thought were telling was that he says that the company should have sufficient funds to do its job on its own. This comes in the wake of the third quarter 2023 financial results, where Virgin Galactic actually did a lot to explain how it's going to use the $1.1 billion in cash that's on the balance sheet right now to get to cash flow positive. And that's what I want to get to next. First is this cash level. Here's the $1.1 billion in cash that was available on September 30th, 2023. So it was an incremental increase, and that was partly because of stock sales that happened during the quarter. So now the question becomes, can Virgin Galactic get to the point where it's going to be cash flow positive? And there are a few changes that were announced this quarter that they hope will get them there. One is a reduction of expenses. So for the last quarter, total operating expenses, $116 million. If you take that run rate of about $500 million per year, Virgin Galactic only has about 2 years worth of cash. So that's not enough to get to cash flow positive. With the Delta ship, I'll get to that in just a second. So what they said they're going to do is reduce their spaceline operations to basically zero. That's the operations for the current spaceship that can fly about once a month. And that's not going to be a sustainable spacecraft because it's not flying enough people. It can only fit 4 passengers. It's not generating enough revenue because it can only fly once a month. And so in mid-2024, they're basically going to mothball that and move on to the Delta spacecraft. So they're going to reduce their operating costs. That was a big part of the changes. The other thing is some changes to the Delta investment. This is the Delta class, next generation unit economics. It's going to cost $50 to $60 million to build that. That's right here in the bottom right corner. And the big change during this announcement is that they're expecting to fly 8 times per month. That's double what they had expected just a couple of quarters ago. So in theory, the revenue per month per ship could be $21.6 to $28.8 million. That will also be at a very high gross margin because the cost for each flight is expected to only be around $400,000 to $500,000. This is where you want to get. You want to get to the point where this spacecraft is flying. It's flying 8 times per month. And according to their own estimates, as long as they have 2 of these operational, you get to 16 flights and the numbers get you to free cash flow positive. These are those numbers right here. And this is using those estimates that I talked about earlier, $50 to $6 million build cost, 75% contribution margins. That basically means that of that $22 to $29 million in revenue, 75% of that is going to contribute to paying for operating costs and pay back less than 6 months. So what they get to right here is 2026 when they expect to have 2 spacecraft operational, and then they get to free cash flow positive. And then here is a little bit of those cost cuts that I talked about earlier. The pink segment is those operating costs. They're going to be spending less on that in 2024 and 2025, spending more on capital expenditures and Delta development. So that's this gray section. That's why you see that go up in 2024. So this is the outline that the company put forward and said that they have enough cash on the balance sheet today, that $1.1 billion, to get to the point where they can have 2 spacecraft and be cash flow positive. Thanks to our friends at The Motley Fool for sponsoring this video. Visit fool.com/ASYM for the top 10 stocks to buy right now. Now, it's perfectly reasonable to question whether Virgin Galactic is going to get to the point where Delta is actually operational 2 years from now and generating positive cash flow. There's plenty of questions around that, and that is ultimately what investors are going to be thinking about over the next couple of years as Delta goes into development and testing and then ultimately launches hopefully sometime in 2026. But what I think is really interesting about the move today is that Branson is still very tied to this company. Yes, he is one of the company's biggest shareholders, but he's been selling stock since the company went public. Like I said, over $1 billion in stock sold. Virgin Galactic's market cap isn't even $1 billion today. So I think the idea that investors were waiting around for Branson to come in with another boatload of money is a little bit wild. And now that this is a public company, there are options for finance in the future. If Virgin Galactic does need to raise funds, it could continue to sell stocks, something it has done in the public markets. It could potentially raise debt. That may be a little bit difficult for a company that's not generating significant revenue right now. Or it could generate money from partnerships. I have put that on the table in the past and said, hey, maybe some of these partners that they're working with to build some of their spacecraft could help be investors as well. But I do think it's a little bit crazy to think that Branson is the sole funder of this company, because that has not been the case since Virgin Galactic came public. As a result, I think the reaction to the market, at least today, is definitely overdone. There's plenty of questions facing Virgin Galactic, but one is not whether Richard Branson is going to put hundreds of millions of money into the company's future. Don't have that as part of my investment thesis. I don't think that's something investors should be counting on. And the only thing I would actually read into is if he continues to sell more stock. He has done that over the past. He's given reasons for that, whether they're valid or not. But now with the economy recovering, with the pandemic essentially over, if he continues to sell stock, that may be a red flag, because he is still an insider. He is one of the biggest shareholders, and shareholders selling stock should always at least pique investors' interest. But hopefully that gives a little bit of background on why the stock is down on Monday. Obviously a big news item, having Richard Branson say that he's not going to back Virgin Galactic. But given the balance sheet, what we found out in the third quarter, I don't really think this is something that's going to move the needle for Virgin Galactic. Doesn't change anything about the balance sheet or their trajectory forward. I'll continue to revisit that on this channel and analyze how the balance sheet changes, how development of the Delta spacecraft changes, because that's ultimately what's going to make this company and the stock sink or swim. But I'd love to hear your comments in the comment section below. Don't forget to subscribe to Asymmetric Investing. Thanks for watching, everybody. See you here next time.